Hi everyone, my name is Marcus. Welcome to Montana's Flintlocks, and apologies for everyone for the, delay since my last video. Life's been pretty busy, and this is just a hobby of mine. But I want to bring another video to everybody today, and it's going to be about me inletting, the lock plate into the side of the flintlock. One thing I do want to point out is I had to do some adjustments to my barrel, the way it was seated in my barrel channel on the stock. So what I found is that I started to do the inlet on the lock plate, that the way it's set up, the barrel seemed to be too far down. So I guess in my efforts to try to get contact with the barrel all the way along the bottom of the barrel channel, and partly because the barrel's swamped, I was bringing the barrel down and down to try to get that contact everywhere. So what I ended up finding is that the barrel ended up being too far down. So then the touch hole ultimately would have been quite a ways higher. It wouldn't have been as centered along that octagonal flat part of the barrel. So I didn't like that. It wasn't symmetric, and I think it would have been difficult to have that hole be sitting up too high. So what I ended up doing is putting down some maple strips of wood, some thin maple strips of wood, and they've been glued down on the inside of the barrel channel, and I shaved those a little bit down. And I'll just show everyone what I'm talking about here. So you can see now the barrel is more or less flush at the top. And as you can tell, I've just drawn a little mark where the proposed touch hole is. So even that's, not perfectly centered, but the touch hole liner won't protrude above this edge here. So it'll allow that touch hole to kind of sit in the best spot to ignite the powder inside. So it does allow the barrel here, the tang and everything to be flush. It all worked out, and overall nothing's noticeable in the barrel itself. It's still very, very well centered. I haven't gone and leveled this all, but we'll do that after. But the main thing I wanted to point out is I did have to do some work to kind of correct a little bit the work that I had done with getting the barrel seated. So without further ado, we're going to move forward with inlaying the lock plate here. And again, we want to have the lock plate all the way touching the barrel there. So first, we're going to get the outline of the lock plate set so that it sits properly in into the the area that's been cut out, and then we're going to slowly take material away, going inside, which will eventually allow this part of the lock to sit nice and flush up against the barrel. And we'll make sure after that, once we put all the parts back on the inside, the back side of the lock plate, we'll be able to make sure that it's not touching anywhere here. So the mainspring and tumbler and all those things will be able to work properly, including the sear. So yeah, see how we do. Okay, so it's pretty much set on this side. And we have this end pretty much in. So we have to do a little bit more on this corner and get this bottom edge properly cut away. And then it should be seated, and then we'll just slowly take this area down on the insides here just to try to drop it down. Okay. So this is kind of difficult to do. We're dealing with curved edges here, which make carving this out somewhat challenging. So we're just going to take little bits of it away. Come back, and then we'll just keep checking. See if we can. Don't want to take too much off. It's easier to take more or take less off than to take too much and then have to try to fix that. Once we get the start of the inlet done, it'll be much easier to continue just digging it in deeper after that. Part of the challenge at this point is actually having small enough tools to do these fine corners. Corners. Try. I'm hopeful that this This tool will allow me just to do curves a little bit easier. So what we might do is see if we can use a file, a small round file, like this, and just see if we can take a little bit more, a little bit of that wall away. I'm sure we'll need to have a bit of extra space anyway to allow for some expansion, but I'd rather do that after we have it inlet. Okay, well, let's try and use some hand tools. I have this old vintage hand drill, and it does have some little bits in here. And I think we should be able to use something like this. Okay. I can just go in this corner and maybe just take a little bit away. And I'll have some control over how much. So a little better than a power tool where it can kind of take off on you. So let's give this a try. We have it inlet. Okay, so we put some inletting black around these edges here. We're not going to try and get it too crazy dirty, but the idea is we'll seat it in here. And I'll just need to find something to give it a tap. Okay. So at this point, I don't see any inletting black along any of this side. So it's just up at the top here and here. So we'll take some away here. It's clearly higher up on this end. We'll have to see. The edges here might be,
see if this will fit in there.
Not perfectly perpendicular, so it may not be pushing down because of that, but
very nice.
It should be. So now
leaving a mark.
So let's take a little bit away. Now it's sitting down.
So now we just need to definitely the highest area is up here, and down here it's not. So plate was a bit like this, so now we're going to have to slowly bring this end down.
Well, I'll just finish this first video off here with just a state of affairs. So some parts of the lock there have been inlet. But as you can see, it's just not quite all the way in there. So it's been a bit challenging to try to get it to evenly inlet down. So what I'm probably going to do is make sure this part is set to the depth. This part of the lock plate,
slowly but surely,
which should allow me to at least have this part
working our way down
of the lock inlet down enough, and then I'm just going to work on evening out the depth across here. I'm finding even with using the inletting black, you're always going to find spots, but it's not really doing it evenly. So if I get this end down, I know I have to get to this depth at the front so that we have this part of the lock flush to the barrel. But
here we need to get
then I should be able to just inlet this ledge down everywhere else to an even depth so that the lock plate isn't
touching the
wobbling
barrel
around. We want it to sit flat and not be doing this. So it's just going to take a bit more work before we finish that off.